Today I'm going to show you how to take some white text and turn it into some green plastic text using layer styles in Photoshop. It's really easy to do, and I'll walk you through step by step. If you don't have Photoshop, there's a link in the description below where you can go click and it'll take you to the Adobe Creative Cloud site. On the Creative Cloud you can subscribe to Photoshop, or you can subscribe to the whole suite of Adobe products. That's what I use, and I find it really helpful. So you start out with a black document. I used a black document 8 inches by 5 inches high, and I used 300 dpi as the resolution. The reason I use 300 dpi is because I run a sublimation business, and most of the things that I make in Photoshop are printed out and they need to have a fair amount of detail. So you start off by typing out your text. I used Arial black text at 72 points. You can just drag your text around there if you like, and the little crosshairs will come up and show you when you have it dead center. Sometimes it's a little tricky. Okay, that looks to be centered there, and I have the pink lines that says that it is. So I have these effects already done up. I just have the visibility turned off in the layers palette. Okay, over on the right hand side of your screen you'll see a layers palette. If you don't see that, you need to go into Window and click where it says layers, and then you'll see the layers palette. So the layer that I'm working on is called green plastic because that's the actual text that I typed in, and the layer name assumes the text that you type in. So if I turn that back on, I just click here. There's a little eyeball that you can't see next to effects. I'll turn that on and it shows the effect that makes it look like green plastic. So I'm just going to double click on this layer, and that should open up the layer style panel where you can go in and change your settings to get different effects. This is the panel. I know that it's probably very hard to read if you're watching this video on a phone especially, and you won't be able to see the settings. What I've done is I've taken a screenshot of each of the sections of the layer style that I want to show you, and I've blown it up a little bit, so it should be a little easier to see. So we're going to start off with the bevel and emboss section of the layer style, and that's what gives it the 3D look. So the style is inner bevel, technique is smooth, depth is 95, size is 24, soften is 3. For shading, there's an angle section here, and the angle is just the angle that the light hits it. The virtual light hits the object. So if you move that around, you can see that it has some effect on how it looks. It's the same as if you're holding a flashlight to an actual object. You see the highlights and shadows of the object itself as you move that around. Object. If you try different ones, you can achieve whatever look you like. It's really cool because you can actually pick the preset ones, or you can actually go in and make your own. If you want to make your own shape, you just go in and double click here on this little picture. It opens up a grid, so you can change it around however you like. I don't usually get into that because I find the ones that they provided there are good enough for what I need. I like this one. Highlight mode and shadow mode, I don't normally play around with that very much. I don't find it makes a big difference. If you play around with it or change the color of these different colors, it makes a little bit of difference, but not a big lot. But like I said, this is your project and you can change it to whatever you like. And I will show you the screenshot of the actual settings that I've used. The next section is the stroke. So the stroke is the little edge part that goes around the text. So you can see it's very small. If I have it set to 6, but I can turn it up, and you can see what it does. It just makes the line around the text bigger or smaller. So we're going to go with 8 for now. I think the screenshot I have says 6, so we'll just go 6. Position, you can set the position to outside, inside, or center. If you set it to outside, the shape of the text that you've typed in will stay exactly the same as it is, and you'll just get the line around the very outside of the text. If you say inside, it does just that. It puts the line inside the text. That gives an interesting look too. Depends on what you're going for. Center, half the line is inside and half the line is outside. I use outside. Blend mode, we're not getting into that right now. Opacity, you can make your stroke more or less visible by turning down the opacity. You see I have it turned right to 0. You can't see it at all. Set it up to 52. You can kind of see it, but not really good. Turn it up to 100 and looks solid. Okay, the fill type I've used here is gradient. By using a gradient on a stroke, I find that it gives a bit of depth, and it actually gives a bit of highlight and shadow to the stroke itself, as opposed to just the inside of the text. We've had that set to linear, to style. There's several different styles that you can use. Shape burst is a good one. We're just going to use linear for now for this project. And again, angle. You can change it around, change the angle of the gradient just by turning the little dial on this spinner. And that just affects how it appears that the light is hitting. Scale, you can turn it up or down. Doesn't really make a big lot of difference at this size. If I turn the size of the stroke up a little bit, you can see that it makes a difference. If you double click on gradient, you can go in this version of Photoshop. You can see that they have a lot of preset gradients. You can go in and pick blues, purples, whatever. But for the purpose of this, we're just going to use the one that I had already set up. And I'm going to change the size of it back to 6. Here are the colors that I actually used for the gradient and the positions. You see that this gradient has 5 stops. Each stop is evenly spaced at 25% intervals. So I show you what the interval is and what the color is. The next section we're going to look at of the layer style is the color overlay. So obviously it's a bright green. So if you want to change that, you can just go in, you can change it to pink, change it to blue, green, like it was, yellow, orange, dark green, light blue, purple. That doesn't look real purple to me, but And again, this is your project, so play around till you get it where exactly you need it, because there's so many different options that you can use here. The next section is the gradient overlay. You can't really see the gradient overlay because the color overlay is on top of the gradient overlay. And the opacity of the color overlay is set to 100. If you turn this back a bit, then you start to see the gradient overlay coming through. And again, this just gives you so many possibilities of different color combinations that you can use. For instance, let's put this as a pink. Doesn't look like a pink because we have the opacity turned down and the gradient is coming up through the pink. We want pink, we haul this up. There you go, you have pink. Turn it back a little bit. The pink just gives it a little twinge of pink to whatever color you have the gradient set to. So we can go in and we can also play with this gradient. Let's turn it to a blue. So you can see the blue combined with the pink gives you this pretty purple color. You can choose to have the color overlay at 100% opacity, so you don't even need to have the gradient on. If you turn the gradient off, it makes absolutely no difference. Turn this pink down a little bit. Turn the gradient layer off by clicking on the check mark. You have a very light pink. You turn this on. You can also change the opacity of the gradient layer. So if you turn it down, it just gives you a slight little bit of the gradient shining through on top of the, beneath the color layer. So you turn that up, gradient overlay, turn it up. Turn this down a little bit. Now you can adjust the opacity of the gradient overlay, and it makes a difference. We're just going to go back in now and reset it back to what I had it. I have this preset saved. Anytime you get a preset that you really like, you just go in and click New Style. And I'm going to call this one Dusty Purple. Oops. Now I have that set if I want to use it for something else. So I can actually just click right here. Sets it back to the original green plastic text that I was using. And there you have it. That's how you make plastic text in Photoshop. Thanks for watching. I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel if you found this information useful.